Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today we are going to talk about the fourth generation Nissan X-Trail, and this is a brand new model that adheres to the new design language of the Nissan brand, and it shows just how far the X-Trail nameplate has gone. Now the X-Trail isn't exactly an old name in the Nissan range. It's not a new one either. It was initially launched at the beginning of the 2000s. So it's roughly 23 years old as a model, but it has evolved a lot from the first generation. The first generation was meant to be a mix offered to customers that wanted some off-roading capabilities, just like they would find on the Patrol or the Pajero models from Nissan, but they didn't want to compromise completely for that capability. So the X-Trail was basically the smaller, more compact and cheaper alternative to the Pajero for most customers. And it was a quite capable car off-road. But it was a boxy one. This wasn't really premium whatsoever. Well, things have changed, and Nissan noticed that the industry is changing and customers want more refinement, more comfort, better materials inside, and so on. So they adapted. This car is, well, in the top specification models, quite impressive, like the one we have here. It has a incredibly premium feeling interior, plenty of room, and a ride that's, well, pretty goddamn comfortable, to be honest. I was surprised by the comfort offered by this car. But before we hop inside and we talk about the interior and the technical side of things, let's talk about the exterior. Well, as you can see up front, the Nissan X-Trail does adhere to the new trends in the business. Basically, it has a split headlight design. We have the daytime running LEDs up top and the headlight on the bottom. This houses the low beam and the high beam. This car has the adaptive LED matrix lights, so it will light up the road ahead of you without bothering anyone else in traffic. We also have the new Nissan grille up front, the new badge, and it looks like it belongs in the Nissan range. It's somehow similar to the Qashqai to some extent, but at the same time they have plenty of different features that you will not mistake them on the road, and I like that about the Nissan design. From the sides you will notice that the doors cover the door sills, which means you won't ruin your pants when you're in a setting such as the one I'm in today. I parked this car on the slope here specifically to remind us all about its initial purpose, the initial purpose of the X-Trail. It's not exactly an off-roader right now, especially since we don't have a mechanical all-wheel drive system anymore, but rumors say it's quite capable in off-roading nonetheless. But we're going to talk about that once we hop behind the wheel. Now, around the back, we have a rather squarish design, still adheres to the Nissan rule book, if you will, and plenty of badges in this case, because we have the X-Trail name, we have the e-Power name, and the e-Force name. So what do they mean? The e-Force name tells you that this is an all-wheel drive car, and the e-Power name tells you what kind of drivetrain we have under the hood, because in most of the European countries this car is only offered with a 3-cylinder 1.5 liter engine. Don't fret though, the 1.5 liter 3-cylinder engine is not alone in this equation. No matter which version you get, you have a hybrid setup. So you have the if you're using the 1.5 liter petrol engine under the hood exclusively to power the car, you also get a small electric generator alongside it for power output of 163 horsepower. But there's the e-Power version, which has 204 horsepower, in which the internal combustion engine works as a generator because you have an electric motor that actually powers the wheels. And then there's the e-Force version, the one we have over here, which maintains that 204 horsepower electric motor up front, but adds an 136 horsepower motor on the rear axle as well for more power and all-wheel drive. We're going to talk about all of those once we hop behind the wheel. But for now, let's hop inside and talk about the interior. And I gotta tell you, there are a couple of very interesting surprises in there as well. Once you get inside the new X-Trail, it's hard not to be impressed by the quality you see all around you, especially if we're talking about higher spec models. This is a Techna Plus model, so basically the top spec version, and it comes with leather, real leather, all around, and it looks absolutely brilliant in this beige color. I love this diamond pattern on the seats. They have perforated leather with black accents on the outside, and they look absolutely brilliant, and the same goes for the back. We have the same material on the door cards and on the dashboard, and I absolutely love the colors in this car. I love the combination between beige and black, and the materials feel really nice to the touch. We have soft touch plastic on the top of the door cards. We have the same material on the top of the dashboard, and the only areas where you have some rougher feeling plastic is on the door cards, but on the lower section of the door cards. But overall, this car feels very well put together, and the materials are of great quality. And I love the fact that they avoided using too much piano black, glossy black, call it what you want. So we only have a bit over here at the bottom of the infotainment screen, some over here on the HVAC controls, which thank God are still physical and you can use them easily, and you can actually adjust the rear temperature as well from the front, and that's about it. This here on the center console is some sort of brushed aluminum finish. It's not real aluminum, but it looks like it, and I actually like it. It's not gathering as many fingerprints as a glossy black surface would. Plenty of room in here. The visibility is great, the rear visibility as well. You have an upright rear window. The windows are actually quite generous, and the A-pillar is quite thin, so you have great visibility all around, and you sit rather high up, and you have a commanding view of the road. So yeah, big plus on that side as well. As far as the ergonomics go, well, everything is what you would expect it to be. I already mentioned the HVAC controls. We have buttons for the multimedia system over here, buttons for the driving modes over here, the new gear shift lever, if you will, and buttons, physical buttons on the steering wheel, which are actually quite useful. Everything you would expect is within reach and easy to use. Now, in terms of technology, Nissan could have done better. This is basically the same multimedia system we've seen on the Qashqai and the Nissan Ariya. It's not exactly the best in the business. It could be better. It could have been better. It could use better graphics and some more hardware in the back, because the animations are quite slow, and the menus could have been rearranged and made easier to understand. But overall, I think it's fine, because you will use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto anyway with your phone, so that's not going to be a terrible nuisance. Behind the wheel, you have a 10.25-inch screen, which is again the same as you would find in any other Nissan model right now. Works great, no complaints whatsoever. So yeah, let's hop in the back and see what awaits over there, because we have a surprise back there. The car can be configured with 5 or 7 seats. We have the 7-seater over here with 2 very small seats on the third row. Let's go. When you hop in the back of the new Nissan X-Trail, you will notice a couple of things. First of all, you will notice just how wide the doors open. So I think they're close to 90 degrees. I didn't check the spec sheet, but they open extremely wide. And I think that was done on purpose to offer the customers, let's say the passengers, the ability to hop in the third row of seats rather easily. I think that was done on purpose. But once you close the door, you will notice that the plastic on the door cards, especially on the top side, is not of the same quality as up front. So there has been some cost cutting done here. On top of the range models, you get privacy, let's call them curtains, if you will. However, the leather on the door cards is the same as up front. So that's a big plus, at least. Let's talk about the armrest for a second. This is basically the third seat over here on the second row. If you want an armrest, you can just fold it and you have 2 cup holders, or you can raise it. Let's see if I find it. And you have 3 seats over here. And of course, you can slide the seats up and down, and you can adjust the seat backs as well, to adjust the space offered for the second row and the third row. Now, even though this car has 3 rows, I will not get in the back because it's not an easy process, and those seats are mainly designed for kids. So you wouldn't really expect an adult of 6 feet and 250 pounds to fit in there. If you're close to, I don't know, 5'5", you might fit in there. So yeah, I'm not gonna get in the back. But I will mention the fact that the boot space will vary depending on the model you choose. So if you go for this 7-seater, if you fold the third row of seats, you have about 450 liters of space left for your luggage. But if you raise the seats, the space left is 120 liters. So you have to decide which is more important for you, the kids or the bags. Now, let's hop behind the wheel and talk about how this car drives, what kind of engines you get. I already mentioned some of them, and of course, if this is a frugal car or not. Now that we hopped behind the wheel of the new Nissan X-Trail, let's talk about the technical side of things for a moment. So, as I already mentioned, this car is built on the CMF CD platform from the Renault Nissan group. It shares it with cars like the Renault Austral, for example, the new Renault Austral, and a couple of other cars as well. But it doesn't share the drivetrains in this situation, just like it happens with the Nissan Qashqai to some extent. So no matter which model you get over here in Europe, you will have a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder engine under the hood in different hybrid variations, as I already mentioned. So the base model is a mild hybrid setup with 163 horsepower. Then there's the e-Power version with 204 horsepower, and then there's the e-Force e-Power version, the one we're driving, with 213 horsepower and 525 Newton meters of torque. Now the e-Power version with 204 horsepower is basically the same drivetrain that we found on the Nissan Qashqai e-Power. It uses the internal combustion engine under the hood as a generator for the battery that feeds the electric motor that powers the wheels up front. So the wheels are powered solely by the electric motor, whereas the internal combustion engine has variable compression, thanks to a clever innovation done by Nissan that allows the drive shaft to change its position so that the piston travel is different and so that the compression varies. It's quite an interesting solution that was applied for the first time on Infiniti models. But leaving that aside, on the e-Power model, the internal combustion engine, that's what you need to remember, is used as a generator. So the car is propelled solely by the electric motor. The same goes for this one, but this one has 2 electric motors, one up front and one in the back. The one up front has 204 horsepower, just like on the other car, and the one on the rear axle has 128 horsepower. And they also rely on the energy provided by the internal combustion engine under the hood to the battery or directly to the electric motor, depending on the situation, to move along. The battery has a total capacity of 2.1 kilowatt hours, but you can use up to 1.7 kilowatt hours out of it. And Nissan says that should be enough for any kind of measure, any kind of moment. Basically, this car is a electric car that uses an internal combustion engine as a generator. So think of it like the BMW i3 REX, for example. That was also an electric car, but had a small scooter engine on board that would turn on and recharge the battery whenever the car needed it. It's basically the same principle over here. Only that on the all-wheel drive version, this one, you have 2 electric motors. My guess is that, even though Nissan didn't confirm this, my guess is that most of the time you will only use the front electric motor. The one in the back is probably activated whenever the car needs more oomph or whenever it detects some grip loss on the front axle. But other than that, I'm guessing the car will just use the front motor. So this solution should make this car a bit more efficient. Well, it's really not that efficient. On the highway, I saw an average fuel consumption of about 10.5 liters per 100 kilometers covered at 130 kilometers an hour with myself and just myself inside the car. Imagine if I had 6 more passengers, because this is a 7-seater car. That's quite a lot. But considering the car has a top speed of 180 kilometers an hour, I was kind of pushing it. What I did enjoy is the fact that this car is pretty fast off the line. Will do 100 kilometers an hour off the line in 7 seconds, which is pretty swift, and you do have that electric instant torque at your disposal all of the time. So whenever you press on the gas pedal, I think we could still call it, the car responds instantly, and that's a very welcome feeling in my book. And you have plenty of torque to play with all the time, because those 525 Newton meters of torque are available instantly. So yeah, it feels like an electric car. And whenever the internal combustion engine does kick in, which can happen if the battery is low on power or if you accelerate swiftly, because as I said, that internal combustion engine can send power to the electric motors directly, not just through the battery. So now I'm pressing harder on the gas pedal and the internal combustion engine kicked in. But I love the fact that it's very well sound insulated, it's very well balanced. You hardly ever notice it in real life, and I like that about this car. I also like the suspension and the refinement of the car overall. I'm going over some pretty stiff and pretty bad roads right now, and I don't feel a lot of jolts inside. It's a multi-link setup, up front and in the back, of course, and this suspension is standard on all models, unlike on the Qashqai, where it depends on the power level or the size of the wheels you go for. So this car gets independent suspension front and back as standard, and it's really comfortable and really quiet. I like the sound insulation of the car. It's brilliant, actually, even at higher speed, no issues whatsoever. And overall, it's an incredibly refined product. Is it for anyone? Well, I don't think so. I like the instant torque. It's a very nice to drive car, but it will lean a bit in the corners. It will understeer a bit. But what's interesting is the fact that I think the engineers set up the rear electric motor to, I don't know, provide more oomph in sport mode in the corners. So basically, if you press the gas pedal right in the middle of a corner, you can actually feel the rear end squirming a bit and pushing the car forward, nullifying the understeer you feel on the initial turn in. Quite an interesting feeling overall, and I actually like the way this car drives. I like it a lot. That said, what's the takeaway? Well, the competition is pretty stiff in this segment. Cars like the Hyundai Santa Fe or the Kia Sorento are rivals for this one, as well as the new Mazda CX-60 or the Toyota RAV4. So there's plenty of competition in this segment as well, in this D segment. But I think this is the most refined ride of all of them. I think this is the best interior out of all of them, with the best materials and the best fit and finish. And I think you should really take this car into consideration if you want to buy a new D segment SUV. Prices start at roughly 36,000 euros over here. This car is 56,000 euros. And I would like you guys to tell me which car in this segment you would pick for you and your family. Until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.